Welcome to the Justice Journal podcast. I'm Sacramento County District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert. I hope you enjoy this podcast series where we discuss important public safety issues and provide insight into who we are as an office and what we do both in the courtroom and in the community to provide the highest level of public safety through prosecution, prevention, and innovation.
Welcome to a special series of Justice Journal podcasts. I'm Shelley Oreo. In the wake of the coronavirus public health crisis, our office is focusing our communication efforts to reinforce the county and state order to social distance and stay at home. We are also focused on informing the community on how the DA's office is working to not only comply with the order, but to be on the forefront of finding solutions to balance public health and safety. I'm joined by District Attorney Anne Marie Schubert and Assistant Chief Deputy District Attorney Thien Ho. Hi, Anne Marie and Thien.
Hi, Shelley.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Anne Marie, can you start by introducing Thien?
Sure. So for those of you that don't know, Thien Ho's been a prosecutor in our office for many years, and he was just in the last week or so promoted to an Assistant Chief Deputy. That occurred after one of our other prosecutors, Morgan Geyer, was appointed to be the next district attorney of Placer County. So Thien has been promoted, and I'm super proud of that. I'm going to let Thien tell you a little bit about himself and what his bureau is, and then I can kind of tell you some more if you want to hear some more.
My name is Thien Ho. I have been an attorney now for over 20 years. I started off as a prosecutor in the Bay Area and joined the Sacramento DA's office in 2004. Since that time, I've prosecuted sex crimes, gang crimes. I was in homicide for 4 years. Recently, about 2 years ago, actually, I was assigned to prosecute the East Area rapist, or the Golden State Killer, Joseph D'Angelo. About a week and a half ago, I have been greatly honored and humbled when Anne Marie promoted me to the position of Assistant Chief over the Justice and Community Relations Bureau. That particular bureau has several different units in it. For example, we have our Community Outreach unit that has designed and put on the Citizens Academy, our Youth Shadow Day. This is where we bring high schoolers and people in our community into our office and into different programs that we've created to educate them about the criminal justice system. We've created the iSmart program that teaches our children about the dangers lurking on the internet and social media. We also have our community prosecution unit where we have prosecutors who are embedded within our different neighborhoods. And what they do is they handle the unique criminal justice needs of each community. We also have the Justice Integrity Unit that handles post-conviction matters. We always strive to make sure that we convict the right person and hold the right people responsible for their crimes. And this unit ensures that that happens. For example, if somebody, after they've been convicted, feel that we need to look at the case again, that's exactly what we do. And so those are some of the units that the Justice and Community Outreach Bureau handles.
So one of the things, Shelley, just real quick to kind of add to Thien's kind of resume is I think many people now understand that, our philosophy here in Sacramento is that, there's more to being a prosecutor than standing in a courtroom. And we've, for many years now, I've kind of taken this philosophical view that we're not just working in a courtroom, which is a critical role, but we're also working in the community. And so Thien brings really a perfect blend of tremendous community outreach that he's had in his past, as well as obviously he's a very, very talented lawyer. And the fact that he and another Assistant Chief Deputy, Amy Holliday, are assigned to the Golden State Killer speaks volumes about his talent level. So, I'm excited not just because he has the skill set of a prosecutor in a courtroom, but he's earned his reputation. People know him in the community, and I believe that over a very short period of time, more folks are going to get to know his talent level when it comes to community relations. So I'm really, really thrilled to have Thien as part of this team.
Yeah, absolutely. We all are. And Thien, I know, has been very involved in our programs in the past, even before leading the division. So
right.
So let's get right into it. Before we get into, we are going to talk about the impact of the coronavirus crisis on the criminal justice system. But I want to get both of your personal and professional insight in your view as to what our society is facing right now. And that covers all aspects. So can I just get your personal thoughts and professional thoughts on that?
Thien, you want to start or you want me to start?
I can say a few words. I think that there is a word that resonates with relevancy in this day and age, and that is the word unprecedented. In these unprecedented times, public health and public safety, they really go hand in hand. They are essentially two sides of the same coin. In order to take care of our families, in order to take care of each other, in order to take care of our community, we need to focus on our health and our security. You can't have one without the other. And so that has been the focus of this office and the focus of law enforcement as we proceed forward in these unprecedented times.
Emery?
I think I would echo what Thien has to say. I think what's the most honest answer is that those of us in the DA's office that, since the moment this pandemic really became apparent, I think many of us have felt like we're really drinking from a fire hose, because this is a time in our lives that I hope we never see again. I hope our children never see again. But it's a time that, I think I said this at one of the press conferences, that, we're going to look back, history will judge us in terms of how we have reacted to this. And we can either act now or we can be hesitant. And our hesitancy and our lack of immediate action can really have an immediate impact on the health and welfare of all of our citizens. So, from a personal perspective, I have kids. I know Thien has kids. Many of us have children. Their lives have been, upended because their educational systems have changed. We're all learning as parents and professionals that we have to change our strategies. I mean, I think that, I've said this once probably in my lifetime, is that sometimes there's not a playbook in life. And there is no playbook for us on this one, really, except to really listen to the experts, take their advice, and follow what they tell us to do, because we have to rely on them. And again, like Thien said, it's this balance and it's this blend of public safety and public health. So as a parent, you learn to adjust. As a professional, as a prosecutor, and we can get into this a little bit more depth, is what are we doing to make sure that our system continues to do what we're all here for, which is to make sure the community is safe, but also to balance the public safety interests of everyone involved in the criminal justice system.
Let's get right into that conversation then. So let's talk about the specific impact this public health emergency is having on our criminal justice system. So this is both Amory and Thien. I'm going to open it up and let you both talk at this point. Can you first talk us through the current changes to the criminal justice system, and follow that by what our office has done, and if haven't done, plans to do to successfully adapt to these changes while, as you say, balance public health with public safety? So either one of you, if you want to, can both just start.
Well, let me start with kind of what happened at the very beginning, which was, when we all kind of saw this starting to emerge. And then in our county, in Sacramento, Dr. Bielenson, Dr. Kasiri, who's the public health officer, issued a directive. And even before that was happening, we could start to tell that something was going to dramatically change, not only within our society, but within our justice system. And I think something that we all have to be mindful of is that, in our criminal justice system, our job as prosecutors is to try to make sure our community is safe, to stand up for victims, to prosecute crimes. But we also have this ethical responsibility that we also have to be mindful of the rights of people that are charged with crimes. So one of the most challenging but really prevalent issues is, how do we deal with the cases that are going through the criminal justice system now? And it could be anything from a driving under the influence case all the way up to a murder case. And how can we address those? Because in our system, people have rights, and they have what we call statutory rights, which means that certain types of things have to happen within a certain period of time. So if somebody gets arrested tonight for a crime, under the law, they have a right to have their charges read to them within typically 48 hours. And so those were some immediate things, dealing with our jail population, making sure that that if people are going to get let out of jail because of this pandemic, that we as prosecutors have a right to object if we feel that they're dangerous folks. So I would say that the most challenging part is to deal with how do we still exercise, how does our justice system move forward when we have these rules about social distancing, it's not even rules, it's best practices, right? We want everybody to be healthy in the court system, obviously in public too, but how do you make sure that the staff, the lawyers, the investigators, the police officers, the court staff, the judges, the inmates, how do we make sure that they are in a healthy situation? So how do we comply with social distancing in a courtroom? So we have moved. I mean, I would be honest in saying that I didn't really know what Zoom was until about 3 weeks ago. And now you become someone that you have to learn how to do this technology. So we have moved very rapidly in a really lightning speed of doing things that might have otherwise taken months, if not years, to implement. So I give a lot of credit to not obviously folks in our office, but a lot of credit to the courts to make sure that we can move at a speed that we're not used to, but because we have to. And so we've moved to doing a lot of what we call remote hearings. So our prosecutors, you can watch it on a live stream out of the Superior Court every day, what's happening, whether it's arraignments, whether it's preliminary hearings, so that we can keep our system going. Because again, we have to have a criminal justice system that continues to operate. So I'm not sure if I covered it all, but I'm sure Thien will fill in if I missed some things.
Thien, can you add to that?
Definitely. I want to throw out a couple of numbers, and the number is 3,000 to 5,000. 3,000 to 5,000 on average every day. 3,000 to 5,000 people utilize the courts here in Sacramento County. Think about that for a moment. That's a lot of people. 3,000 to 5,000 people. And when the courts closed down for the last 2 weeks in March, up until April 1st, that was 3,000 to 5,000 people that were no longer walking through the doors of the courthouse. Everything came to a screeching halt. Our system of justice has been greatly impacted by this pandemic, definitely in the short term. And in the long term, the effect that it's going to have is something that we can't yet predict or imagine. But we are adapting, and we are adapting at a very quick pace, as Anne-Marie talked about. And I'll give you some examples. A preliminary hearing is a court proceeding, essentially, where the prosecutor must call witnesses to testify in front of a judge, demonstrating that there is sufficient evidence to hold the defendant over for trial. To ensure the social distancing is sufficient, and to ensure the public health of the people involved, the attorneys, the defendant, the judge, the court staff, what we are doing is conducting these preliminary hearings remotely. You'll have a prosecutor. She's in her home or in her office asking questions of a witness, and she's doing so via Zoom. The officers over at the police station testifying via Zoom remotely. You have the judge in his own courtroom. You have the defendant who's in a courtroom that's connected to the jail who's appearing. The defense attorney is there, and the defense attorney has the capability of actually muting everybody so that the defense attorney can speak to their client in private. So all of this is going on while it's also being broadcast via YouTube on the court's webpage. And so we are still ensuring a defendant's right to have a timely hearing. We are ensuring a defendant's right to be able to listen to the evidence, to see the evidence, to test the evidence. But at the same time, we are taking and making every effort to keep the community safe. Our intake division, those are the prosecutors that are in charge of making filing decisions about what cases to file. They're coming into the office in rotating shifts. Our trial attorneys are taking their files home with them, sometimes in electronic format, to work on the cases at home. The supervisors in our office, they have a pulse on what's going on. Our JTI, our Justice Integrity Unit, they're doing research in order to make sure that we can do these hearings remotely, that they meet constitutional guidelines. So I think everybody is pulling together, going in the same direction to really be the caretaker of our community. And those are just some of the examples that we're utilizing right now to ensure public safety, but also public security as well.
The other thing I would just add real quick, Shelley, that I think is important, and Tim kind of mentioned, is that, we have these core functions that we have to do. We could not do these without our support staff, because they have really stepped up in extraordinary times. And, so when we talk about how do we keep the justice system going, we also have to react to this pandemic within our own office by following, again, those guidelines. So as Tim mentioned, we really have gone to the most skeleton crew physically at our office, meaning we have the least number of people that we need there to do our functions, with people also working from home. So, but we're doing everything we can within the building itself. We have several buildings, but within our buildings, to make sure that we're complying. One person's on the elevator at a time. Don't be, closer than 6 feet to somebody. Hand sanitizers everywhere. All those same things that we see out in our general society, we're doing everything we can. But, what I've really learned in times of crisis, and we've had a few in Sacramento over the last few years, is that people step up. I said to somebody yesterday, after watching some of the various YouTube things, it happened to be Easter Sunday, and there's a feeling, at least for me, having gone through 9/11, that we have united, not just as a county or as a state or as a country, but we've united as a world in all the goodness of humanity to come together to protect everyone and ultimately to move forward, because we will move forward.
It's a very good point. I think everybody has to work together because, as we know, we're all in it together. So
absolutely,
time for that to happen. When it comes to victims and witnesses, they're obviously a part of the court process. How is that being handled and those services being carried out?
Well, we have, as some folks may know, we have a whole division within our office. It's called the Victim Witness Division. And so if somebody is the unfortunate victim of a crime, we have advocates who are social workers that are assigned to them, and without the pandemic, be involved with reaching out to them and helping through the process, offering various services. Now with the pandemic, they're still there, and they may be working remotely, but they're available to them. And I'm sure, quite frankly, sure that they're working remotely with those victims to make sure that they can get their services and the needs met. And if in the rare event, we actually had to call a witness for some type of these proceedings like Tin mentioned, we would have an advocate available as well. Miss anything on that one, Tin?
No, I think you covered everything.
All right.
So with these adaptions and obviously all the changes that are happening, how do you both feel about how it's going at this point?
I think it's, we've been in this now for close to a month at least. And I think it's an ever evolving system. And it feels, I think, being part of the executive team, and I know Tim's seen it just in the last couple of weeks, is that something new is happening many times a day. So for instance, our latest challenge has been an order from the Chief Justice that deals with people that are in custody pending charges that can have their bail reset to try to lower the population, to try to reduce the risk. There's that has been an enormous undertaking for our office and our team, because that's a lot of people, and we are very diligent in making sure that we are not going to agree to the release of somebody if we believe they're dangerous. So that's one example of many, but it just, when I say drinking from the fire hose, that still feels that way, at least to me. I think we have a very good system with our office now, but I think, it's going to still take some time to settle. We've got our remote stuff set, I think, pretty well settled, and that took quite a heavy lift, I would say, to get all these remote hearings set. Now we're moving on to other issues, but again, extraordinary efforts by the entire office.
Ken, can you talk a little bit more about the importance of adapting, especially during these times when so much is needed?
Definitely. As Anne-Marie mentioned, it's the importance of adapting. We really, at this point in time, and all of us need to do everything we can to flatten the curve. As a cautionary tale, there was a situation, I think, in a Brooklyn, New York courtroom back over on March the 12th of this year. Judge Johnny Baines' courtroom was jam-packed that day with lawyers, with observers. People were sitting basically shoulder to shoulder, front to back in that courtroom. And there was a whisper, a very nervous whisper that came across the attorneys in that courtroom. They were worried because at that very moment, it was the beginning of the spread of the pandemic in New York City. So when one of the lawyers stood up in that courtroom and he expressed that concern to the judge about how it was jam-packed with lawyers and they weren't following the social distancing rules, the judge fired back. If you don't like it, you can leave. Now, this was an experienced judge. He was a good jurist and a good man. But that would be Judge Baines' last court appearance as a judge because 2 weeks later, he passed away from complications of the coronavirus. Other lawyers that were in the courthouse that day became sick. This virus is really no joke. We need to adapt and we need to change in order to truly protect public health and public safety. And I think that everybody in our community, in the court system, and that's with the judges, with our Chief Justice, with the Judicial Council, with our local Sacramento bench, the defense bar, and especially our office in law enforcement, we are striving to protect those two things, public health and public safety, while also balancing the constitutional mandates of people who are accused of crimes. And I think we're all trying to do that as best as we can, but we are trying to fulfill that caretaking function as best as we can.
Great. Anne-Marie, do you want to add anything to that part?
I think, Thien had sent me that article about that judge from New York, and it was tragic and it was very sad. And, it's terrible to see what's happening really in New York, obviously across this country. But, we have to be willing to stay informed. And, in our county here, I feel fortunate and grateful that we've had the ability to really, I believe, set the standard for how our judicial system should be working here, because we have, and trust me, I know what's going on around the state of California with my colleagues, because not everybody's like Sacramento. I mean, I don't want to toot our own horn, but I might as well. So, there's other counties out there that judges are requiring the lawyers to be physically present in a courtroom. And I get it, because change is hard and it's uncomfortable. But there's never been a time right now that it's more immediate. And so for us in Sacramento, in our office, I would say we put our foot down and said, no, we can do remote hearings. That's legal and it's safer. And so I feel very fortunate that, everybody in our system, for the most part, responded quickly. But I can't say that's happening everywhere across the state of California or even across this country, because some people think, you might even have people in your own office. Oh, yeah, it's no big deal. I can go over to court. No, if we don't have to be there, it's the same thing as some people might say, I can go into the office. If you don't have an essential need to be there, then you don't have to. And if we have other alternatives like this remote technology. So I actually feel very grateful that we're here in Sacramento. I can't say that it's the same across the state, although I believe people are getting there. But we have to move at lightning speed when it comes to this pandemic. There's no question about it.
Yeah. As public safety professionals and members of this community, what would you say to people who might be concerned about the ability of the criminal justice system to continue working and to serve justice during this crisis? Anne-Marie?
Well, I think you can watch live stream television every day to see what's happening in our courthouse. The fact that our court has implemented a live stream so the public can have access to it. It's different, but it's still a criminal justice system that is balancing the rights of those people that are charged with crimes with public safety. And yes, it's different, but our system is moving forward. And it may not be moving the same way it was before, but it's still doing and meeting the essential needs of public safety and balancing the rights of those individuals.
Thien?
I would say this. We have to look at this. It is unprecedented. It is a pandemic, but throughout the history of humanity, all right, whether you had the Middle Ages, whether you had the bubonic plague, whether you had the Spanish flu, or even World War II, or the things that every society goes through, There are dark times, but we will survive. And not only will we survive, we will thrive. And we will thrive and go on. Life will go on. And we have to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It will be there. And in the meantime, although crimes are still being committed, the police, they're still patrolling our streets. They're still enforcing the law. They're still investigating the crimes. And we, at the district attorney's office, we're still prosecuting those cases to ensure that our communities remain safe. Public health and public safety, they always go hand in hand. But we are standing watch, and we are each other's caretakers. And life will thrive, and it will go on.
Great. And it sounds like we're going to learn a lot from this experience as well, in terms of, if something like this were to happen, hopefully not, but if it does, we'll be, not just us, but lots of parts of our society, I think, are learning how to do things different if we need to again in the future.
Very true. Very true. I think one of the things that is probably one of the, I would say, a positive out of this terrible situation is this whole ability to do things remotely. It's not, we all miss, we miss human interactions. We learn how to have Zoom parties. You learn how to have I went to my first Zoom retirement party of somebody from our office a few weeks ago. I'd never in my life, but it was, we have to be willing to adapt. And yes, I read all the stories. I'm obsessed with all the news that we see, and where are we going to be? How is life going to look, in November? Is this going to come back? How are we going to survive this? We will. And in some ways, out of tragedies come success stories. And so we're going to see some positive things that come out of this. And it's like, how do we improve how can we improve? On a very human side, people in times of crisis, they look to their families and their loved ones. And so, as much as we may not be able to interact as much as we want with our friends, we have other ways that we can do that. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to your family and those relationships you have. So, I agree. I just think it's just something we all have to be mindful of.
Is there anything else either one of you want to add that we haven't talked about?
I would let me just leave it at this last point that I made a couple weeks ago, is for the public: stay informed, stay healthy, stay home, and listen to the public health orders. That is the most, honestly, I read the news this morning about a sideshow going on down in South Sac with 150 people. And I thought to myself, what are people thinking?
Wow.
At the most critical time in this public health crisis, that people think that they should go out and party, and put, not just themselves at risk, but the people that then go home and interact with. So stay informed, stay healthy, and follow the order. That's the most important thing.
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie and Thien, for giving some insight and informing the public about what our office is doing in terms of the impact on the criminal justice system, and ensuring that you are serving justice in a fair and balanced way. We will have some follow-up episodes on domestic violence and child abuse during these difficult times. So follow us on social media or subscribe to our podcast for an alert on those episodes. Also on our website at sacda.org, we have information on COVID-19 related announcements, one about price gouging and the other looting during the state of emergency, as well as the public health order. I also encourage you to visit the Sacramento County's website at saccounty.net for the latest information on COVID-19 information and status updates in our county specifically. So with that, I thank you, Thien and Anne-Marie, and we will be back soon for our follow-up episodes. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find all of the Justice Journal podcasts on our website at sacda.org, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube.